Ji-hoon froze in shock at the sight of his master's suite. The door, which should have been locked, was wide open. Through the gap he saw her. Amara was on her knees at the foot of his bed, her dark skin glowing under the dim amber lights, her breath coming in shallow, terrified gasps. But she wasn't alone. Standing over her was a man Ji-hoon recognized from a life he tried to bury. A man holding a black semi-automatic pressed firmly against Amara's temple. "One more step, Ji-hoon," the man whispered, his voice like sliding glass, "and the maid pays for your sins." Amara's eyes met Ji-hoon's. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She looked at him with a heartbreaking mix of apology and a secret that threatened to shatter his entire empire. Ji-hoon's hand tightened on the doorknob until his knuckles turned white. He had millions in the bank, a city at his feet, and a heart made of stone. But in this moment he realized he'd give it all up just to make sure she breathed one more time. 3 months earlier, Amara arrived at the Kong estate. It was a fortress of glass and steel perched on the hills of Seoul, overlooking a city that never slept. For Amara, it wasn't a dream job, it was a survival tactic. She was a woman with no records, a heavy suitcase, and a past that was catching up to her. Ji-hoon was a man of tradition, of order, and of legendary cruelty. Their first meeting wasn't romantic, it was an interrogation. Ji-hoon sat behind a desk of obsidian. He didn't look up from his papers as she entered. "Name," he commanded. "Amara," she replied, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. "I didn't ask for a first name, I asked for a name." "I don't use the other one," she said. That caught his attention. Ji-hoon looked up. His eyes were cold, scanning her from her braided hair to her sensible shoes. He looked at her not as a person but as a variable he couldn't control. "You're overqualified for a maid, Amara. 3 languages, a degree in finance from London. Why are you cleaning my floors?" Amara stepped closer, leaning into the light. "Because your floors are the only place in Seoul where people are too afraid to look for me." A shadow of a smile touched Ji-hoon's lips. It wasn't kind. It was the look of a predator who had found a new type of prey. "Rule 1, Ji-hoon said, standing up. He walked around the desk, his presence looming over her. He was a head taller, smelling of cedarwood and power. "You do not enter my bedroom unless I am in it." "Rule 2? You never ever touch the safe in my library." Amara nodded. "And Rule 3? Ji-hoon leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. "Rule 3 is the most important. If you lie to me, I won't fire you. I'll ruin you." He thought he was the one in control. He had no idea that Amara was already ruined, and she was about to bring his world down with her. The weeks that followed were a dance of shadows. Amara worked in silence. She was efficient, invisible, and observant. She noticed things the other staff didn't. She noticed the way Ji-hoon's hand shook when he took his evening scotch. She noticed the burner phone he kept in the kitchen drawer. And Ji-hoon? He was watching her too. He found excuses to be in the room she was cleaning. He would sit in the library pretending to read while she dusted the shelves. The tension between them was a physical weight, a tether that tightened every time their hands accidentally brushed while she served his coffee. One rainy Tuesday, the power in the estate flickered and died. Amara was in the hallway heading for the supply closet, when she collided with a solid wall of wool and muscle. Ji-hoon caught her by the waist, his grip firm and possessive. In the darkness, the world narrowed down to the sound of their breathing. "You're trembling," Ji-hoon remarked. His voice was lower than usual, stripped of its corporate edge. "It's just the dark," Amara lied. "Is it?" He pulled her closer. "Or are you afraid of what I'll do now that no one is watching?" Amara reached out, her fingers grazing the silk of his tie. "I think you're more afraid than I am, Mr. Kong. You're afraid that if you let me go you'll realize how empty this house really is." For a second the mask slipped. Ji-hoon's grip tightened. He looked like he wanted to kiss her, or break her. But then the backup generators kicked in. The lights hummed to life. Ji-hoon pushed her away, his expression turning back to stone. "Get back to work," he snapped. But as he walked away, Amara saw the way he looked back at her. It wasn't just lust. It was a hunger for something he didn't understand. Little did she know, that hunger was about to become his greatest weakness. Because someone was watching them. Someone who knew exactly how to use Ji-hoon's growing obsession against him. The mystery of this safe in the library began to haunt Amara. She wasn't a thief, but she was a woman looking for leverage. She knew Ji-hoon was hiding something. Something that involved the late-night visits from men in blacked-out SUVs. One evening, while Ji-hoon was at a gala, Amara found the library door unlocked. She shouldn't have gone in. She knew the risks. But the curiosity was a fever. She went to the obsidian desk, searching for the mechanism. She found it, a small button hidden under the mahogany trim. The wall panel slid back silently, revealing not a safe, but a collection of files. Amara flipped through them. Her blood turned to ice. They weren't financial records. They were surveillance photos. Photos of her. Photos of her in London. Photos of her at the airport. Even photos of her at her mother's funeral 3 years ago. Ji-hoon hadn't hired her by accident. He had hunted her. Finding what you're looking for? Amara spun around. Ji-hoon was leaning against the doorframe, his tuxedo jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up. He looked lethal. You knew, Amara whispered, the files shaking in her hand. You've been tracking me for years. Why? Ji-hoon walked toward her, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood. Because you have something that belongs to my family, Amara. Or should I call you Amara Vance, daughter of the man who embezzled 40 million from my father? Amara backed away until she hit the desk. My father was framed. Your father killed him. Is that what you believe? Ji-hoon pinned her against the desk, his hands on either side of her hips. Then why did you come here? To kill me? To take back the money? To find the truth, she hissed. Their faces were inches apart. The air was thick with hate, but underneath it, there was a desperate, dark attraction. Ji-hoon grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. The truth is, he whispered, I should have turned you over to the board the moment you stepped foot in Korea. But I couldn't. Do you know why? Amara didn't answer. Because the moment I saw you in that London cafe 3 years ago, I stopped caring about the money. I became obsessed with the girl who lost everything and still walked like a queen. He leaned in, his lips ghosting over hers. You're my prisoner now, Amara. Not my maid. If you're enjoying this dark romance and want to see how Amara survives the lion's den, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We post intense high-stakes stories every week that you won't want to miss. Now back to the shadows of the Kong estate. The dynamic changed after that night. The pretense of maid and master was gone. Ji-hoon kept Amara close, too close. She was forced to eat dinner with him, to sit in his office while he worked. He treated her like a prize, a beautiful secret he had finally captured. But possession comes with a price. Ji-hoon's rival, a man named Min-jun, had been looking for a way to topple the Kong Empire for a decade. Min-jun was a man who dealt in blood where Ji-hoon dealt in stocks. He had noticed Ji-hoon's distraction. He had noticed the beautiful black woman who never left the estate. You're getting soft, Ji-hoon, Min-jun told him during a tense meeting at a private club. The board is talking. They say you've brought a stray into your home. A dangerous one. Ji-hoon didn't blink. She's mine to deal with, Min-jun. Stay out of my house. Your house. Or your heart. Min-jun laughed, a dry, rattling sound. Be careful. When you love something you give the world a target. That night, Ji-hoon returned home in a rage. He found Amara in the garden looking up at the moon. He didn't speak. He simply grabbed her hand and led her up to his bedroom. The room she was forbidden to enter. He pushed her onto the silk sheets, his eyes burning with a possessive fire. Min-jun is coming for you, he said, his voice raw. He thinks you're my weakness. Amara looked up at him, her heart racing. Am I? Ji-hoon hovered over her, his hands trembling. You're my ruin. And I won't let anyone else destroy you but me. For the first time, Amara didn't fight him. She reached up, pulling him down into a kiss that tasted of desperation and salt. It was dark, it was messy, and it was the start of a war they weren't prepared for. The morning after was the calm before the storm. Ji-hoon had left early for an emergency board meeting, leaving extra security at the gates. But security is only as good as the people who can't be bought. Amara was in Ji-hoon's bedroom, cleaning up the remnants of the night before, when she heard it. The soft thud of a body hitting the floor in the hallway. She ran for the door, but it swung open before she could reach it. Min-jun stepped inside, smelling of rain and gunpowder. He wasn't alone. 2 men followed him, but it was the look in Min-jun's eyes that terrified her. So you're the one, Min-jun said, circling her like a shark. The daughter of a thief and the weakness of a king. He'll kill you for this, Amara said, backing away toward the bed. He'll try, Min-jun smiled. He pulled a gun from his waistband and clicked the safety off. But first he's going to watch you bleed. It's only fair, right? A life for a life. Amara felt the edge of the mattress hit the back of her knees. She looked for a weapon, a way out. Her hand brushed a heavy crystal vase on the nightstand. That's when the door burst open. Ji-hoon stood there. He wasn't the polished CEO anymore. His hair was disheveled, his eyes were wild, and he was holding a gun of his own. Step back, Min-jun, Ji-hoon said, his voice a low growl. We're back to where we started. The tension in the room is a physical cord ready to snap. Min-jun pressed the barrel of the gun against Amara's temple. Drop it, Ji-hoon. Or she dies right here on the bed you shared with her. Ji-hoon's gaze shifted to Amara. He saw the terror in her eyes, but he also saw something else. He saw the crystal vase in her hand, hidden by the folds of her dress. He saw the woman who had survived London, who had survived him. You think she's my weakness? Ji-hoon said, his voice suddenly calm. Too calm. He lowered his gun. You're wrong, Min-jun. She's not my weakness. Min-jun smirked. Liar. She's my partner, Ji-hoon said. In that split second, Ji-hoon didn't fire at Min-jun. He fired at the overhead chandelier. The room plunged into chaos as the massive glass fixture crashed down, sending shards of crystal flying like shrapnel. Amara didn't hesitate. She swung the vase with everything she had, catching Min-jun in the side of the head. He staggered, his shot going wild into the ceiling. Ji-hoon was across the room in a flash. He tackled Min-jun, the two men crashing into the glass-covered floor. It was a brutal, ugly fight. No rules, no corporate decorum. Just two predators fighting for survival. Amara scrambled away, grabbing the fallen gun. She leveled it at Min-jun's men who were rushing into the room. Don't, she screamed. The men froze. There was something in her voice, a cold, lethal certainty, that made them hesitate. On the floor, Ji-hoon had Min-jun pinned. He had his hands around the other man's throat, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Ji-hoon, stop. Amara cried out. Ji-hoon didn't listen. His eyes were vacant, lost in the darkness that had defined his life for so long. Ji-hoon. Look at me. He paused. He looked up, his face splattered with blood. He saw Amara holding the gun, her chest heaving, her eyes filled with tears. Don't become him, she whispered. If you kill him like this, you lose everything. You lose us. The word us hung in the air, heavier than the smoke and the scent of blood. Slowly, Ji-hoon let go. He stood up, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked down at Min-jun, who was gasping for air, broken and defeated. Get him out of here, Ji-hoon told the guards who had finally arrived. And tell the board. I'm resigning. The Kang estate was quiet once more. The glass had been swept away. The blood had been cleaned. But the house didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like a fortress or a cage. Amara stood on the balcony watching the sun rise over Seoul. She felt a coat being draped over her shoulders. Ji-hoon stood behind her, his hands resting on her waist. He looked tired, but for the first time in his life he looked at peace. You meant it, he said. When you said us. Amara turned in his arms. I did. But it won't be easy, Ji-hoon. Your world doesn't like people like me. And my world is still full of ghosts. Ji-hoon leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers. Let them come. I spent my whole life building walls to keep people out. Now I'll build them to keep you safe. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound book. He handed it to her. What is this? She asked. The evidence, he said. The real files. My father didn't kill yours, Amara. But he knew who did. I found them. I've already sent the copies to the prosecutor. Amara opened the book, her eyes scanning the names. Tears blurred her vision. It was the truth. The closure she had hunted for years. Why now? She asked. Because, Ji-hoon whispered, kissing her temple. I realized I couldn't have a future with you if I was still holding on to the lies of my past. They stood there for a long time, two broken people holding on to each other as the city woke up. They were from different worlds, separated by language, race, and history. But in the dark, under the shadow of a fallen empire, they had found the only thing that was real. However, as they looked out at the horizon, a single black SUV sat at the edge of the estate gates. Inside, a man picked up a radio. The CO is out, the man said. Initiate Phase 2. The war for the Kang Empire was over. But the war for Amara? It was only just beginning. Ji-hoon thought he had walked away from the danger, but in the world of the elite, you never truly leave. Someone is always waiting in the shadows. What is Phase 2? And who is the man in the SUV? If you want to see the next chapter of Amara and Ji-hoon's story, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Thanks for watching.